Dripping of water drops. That was all that could be heard within the dark, ordinary cave. The red and black dragon demon known as Zarkhator scanned around the cave he was in. The cave was rather interesting, to say the least. Water drops fall from the crystals that were attached to walls and ceilings of the cave. Zarkhator walked straight, not caring about his feet getting wet as he stepped in a few puddles here and there. There was a small river trail that led to a closed doorway. Zarkhator followed this trail curiously before stopping the doorway itself. However, he wasn't sure how to get it opened. That's when he realized that the cave was more magical cave, and maybe so, if things say one magic word, it'll open to the next path. That's when it popped in his head as he said the one only magic word, it will work. Open sesame! Surprisingly, it worked. The cave shook and the doorway began to open, rather a colorful path. The path was filled with shining crystals that lit up in the dark cave. Zarkhator's eyes were glued to the lighting, as this wasn't his first time with such experience as before. As he walked while looking around, the crystals shined with many different colors, almost like a rainbow. It was hard for him not to even look away from them, but he knew he had to keep going, as whatever awaits in his cave, he wasn't alone. As he passed the crystals, they suddenly burnt out. Strange, they don't usually do that, but as if another entity was here with him. Zarkhator felt a slight presence, that this was another mind game of being played by whoever the entity might be, waiting for him to arrive at his presence. Zarkhator pressed onward until he suddenly felt the floor crack and then began to fall through the floor. Luckily, he was able to land on his head and scanned for a path hoping that this wasn't some kind of dead-end trap. Thankfully, though, he found a path and carried on. This is the next area of the cave. He only had the waterfalls, which was pretty simple enough and rather nice to look at, along with the relaxation sounds of the waterfall themselves. Another doorway was at this destination, but this one opened on its own without command, and yet again it caused the entire cave to shake as it opened. Zarkhator stepped in only the doorway for it to close on him. The area looked dead-end, but it likely had to be a luring trap. Maybe this entity will show itself? Zarkhator looked around curiously and patiently awaited for whatever was going to greet him. A whistle was heard. This, however, wasn't any normal whistle. It sounded very intimidating, as it was rather sinister melody to it. Zarkhator stood his ground and death claws out as he looked around for whatever would be whistling in such a sinister melody. The entity showed itself. However, this entity was a hooded figure that hid in the darkness for 5 seconds before stepping into the light. That's when the figure lowered its hood and fully revealed itself. This figure had to be facial feature of a white wolf with pure eyes, along with the figure that had looked to be 2 hooks, which they were to be his combat weapons. This wolf figure looked at Zarkhator. Zarkhator then spoke. What are you supposed to be? Grim Reaper in a wolf form? The creature chuckled at the question, before speaking in a rather calm Spanish accent. You are close enough, although you aren't wrong. I am the legend who those that see there's time almost coming before. I am deaf straight up. Zarkhator sarcastically replied, Tell me you're joking. There's no way Grim Reaper would be some bloodthirsty wolf. Besides, my time hasn't come. At least not yet. So I believe you got the wrong one. There's no way. I could die when I'm literally mortal. The deaf wolf then spoke. Oh, but it could be possible. That I, deaf, can have many different forms, no matter what universe. And I'm afraid you will not be escaping here, fellow demon, who fell for my trap. That's when the deaf wolf both clashed his hook's weapons together, making the sound clanging as he grinned while approaching Zarkhator. Zarkhator opened his death claws and began to launch at the deaf wolf, but just as he was about to start his attack, he missed as Death dodged it. My, aren't you a fully prepared one? Death said mockingly. Zarkhator, however, was getting started as he charged at Deathwolf again. Death blocked Zarkhator's death claws and attacked him with his hook weapons, and attempted to strike Zarkhator, but Zarkhator grabbed his hook weapons. "Didn't you not see I have 4 arms?" Zarkhator said as he punched Death in the nose with his upper fist. Death stumbled backwards before wiping his nose. His nose bled a little, but Death shrugged it off this and chuckled before saying, "I could see you use your brain to have your ways to release yourself from my grasp. But I'm not finished with you yet, Demono." Zarkhator realized that he said demon in Spanish, and figured that while this entity of a Spanish accent, of course, he'd rather call certain entities by a Spanish name. This did not phrase Zarkhator, though, as he opened his wings and flew upwards before dashing down and ramming Death into the wall. Death flew back at full force, hitting the wall, but quickly got back up and hook weapons in hand, and began to put both his hook and weapons together on the same stick-like holder, and jumped high. Zarkhator flew upwards again, before dashing at full aim at Death, and both of them clashed, knocking both of each other. Zarkhator kicked Death in the face, which made Death flinch, but then he slammed one of his hook weapons down on Zarkhator, which nearly misses him. Zarkhator held on to Death's weapon, and used as much strength as he can to free himself from being pinned to the ground. Death's stick holder began to snap in two, and Zarkhator punched Death again, this time right in the face, before using a power Death didn't expect him to use. Zarkhator raised one of his upper hands and used Death's entire body raised up. Death was rather puzzled by this and could have not moved it as this overpowered him. "Say hello to telekinesis, Lobo," Zarkhator said, and then began to use the force to push him against the wall. Death had hit hard against the wall, and this last hit was all he could take as he sat there between accepting defeat. Zarkhator walked up to a now stunned and beaten wolf and looked down on him. "You are a strong demon. Perhaps I was right. Your time isn't coming yet," the deaf wolf said as he slowly got up, his legs trembling as he continued to speak. "But always remember, death comes for all, and we will meet again, for you know this wind is fight. Think you should think twice before picking up on who's vulnerable and who isn't," Zarkhator said. The cave suddenly opened an exit, and had shined a bright light above the ceiling and began to open on its own. "Run along now, Demino. Next time I won't be as easy as you think," Death said while trying to remain standing after the beatings he took. "Actually, I'm always up for harder challenges," Zarkhator said, before saying one last thing before he opened his wings and dashed upward. "And by the way, my name is Zarkhator." He dashed upwards and exited out of the cave like a blink of an eye, not afraid to get his name out to the deaf wolf. "Zarkhator, huh?" Death said to himself, as he was willing to keep that in mind before he regained his consciousness, and picked up his 2 hooks and began to walk back into the darkness, followed by the sinister melody of his whistle that would echo within the cave itself. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.